kind of jumping back on our previous topic, is I've traveled over 60,000 miles in 2 years.
Damn.
And so,
Didn't
yeah.
that.
And so, even though, I guess like there's kind of like all these losses looking back on it, I've done, I guess, like you said, lived my 20s out in my, last 2 years. But I love traveling. I love being able to like share travel with other people. And it inspires people too. You know what I mean? Just to live out your own passions inspires other people to do the same. And that's really what I want to do for the next rest of my life. So.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the second ever episode of the Planet Piertree podcast. I'm your host, Creighton DeVore. And on today's episode, I have a very special guest. He's someone I've known for a while. He's been silently building large 100,000 plus followings for other Instagram pages, kind of just helping other people grow their audiences. And now he's kind of stepping back, starting to build his own brand, establish himself as a content creator. So before we go any further, I'd like to introduce Gabe Knechtel. Gabe, how are you doing, bro?
Doing pretty good.
I appreciate you coming on. So before we get into it, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your story, where you grew up, kind of where you came from, and how you got to where you are right now?
So I'm from kind of out in the boondocks in central Kansas. I grew up, went to same school as Trayton. And after high school, I went to college for a bit, decided to drop out and do mission work in Africa for a while. I've always kind of lived by the seat of my pants for a way of saying things there. But then after I got back from mission work, I started a marketing agency, kind of went through all that stuff, help people out. I've worked with really large influencers and grown Instagram pages since pretty much mid high school, and so probably about 2016-ish. Helped Trayton out with just a few things. We've known each other for a pretty decent time, probably about 4 or 6 years. And now I'm with kind of COVID hitting and all that kind of stuff. It really kind of knocked me off my feet pretty good, and so I decided to dissolve my marketing agency, and right now I'm jumping into building my own brand as an outdoor content creator. And I'm going to be doing pretty much just YouTube and Instagram full time from now on.
Awesome. I love that. And one thing, because I know you didn't go too in depth there, and I wanted to hit on this because I'm kind of just genuinely curious. I know when you were kind of transitioning from the marketing work and the marketing agency and everything, you were gonna go into real estate. Like you posted about it on Facebook, everything. Like, and I was fully on board with it. Like I thought you were gonna kill it. And how hard was it for you to kind of pivot away from that quickly? Because for me personally, like if I put something out there and then I kind of wanted to pivot, like that would stress me out a lot. Like I would have a lot of anxiety about that and just kind of feel like people were judging me. Like is that anything you struggled with on that side, or kind of what was the thought process and everything that went on behind the scenes?
Yeah, that was definitely something that was kind of a hard decision to make. Definitely, probably more hard emotionally than it was, decision wise, mentally. But yeah, I was going to go into real estate. I mean, I took all the real estate courses, went through the courses, like 60 hours worth of content and training and tests. And I only had like my actual exam left to take before I would get my real estate license. And so I was only one step away, but I lost a really big contract with my marketing agency, and it cut my revenue in 3/4. And so I was operating on 25% of what I was used to. And that contract was kind of what I was going to pile up to dive into my real estate career, because it's not cheap to get into real estate. And so I was going to use that, dive in. But when that hit, right as I was finishing everything up there, and I told the whole world about it for like a month long, kind of hyping myself up to have some momentum diving into it. I hit a point where I was looking at my income and looking at what my expenses would be, and it was not making even numbers. And so I just had to make a kind of a Mark Manson style decision where it's like, I just don't care what people are going to say. I'm going to have to save one of these. There's old phrase like, chase two hares catch none. It's like if you chase one thing, you might be able to catch it. If you chase two things, probably going to catch neither of them. And that was really the point that I had to make a decision where I realized that I couldn't do both financially. And so I decided to drop the real estate, which was kind of it created some awkwardness for a while, and there was just a point where I had to go read The Subtle Art again, kind of reinforce that mindset, and kind of just made sure to keep those relationships I'd built with the real estate side of things pretty strong. On the brokerage I was going to go with, basically said, hey, I also own this marketing agency. It just took a really big financial hit, and I'm not going to be able to, invest into a real estate career at this moment. But, thank you for the opportunity you would have given me to join your brokerage, and just left that, bridge standing nice and strong. And then, poured everything financially into trying to save my marketing agency, which ended up not working anyway. But, it's kind of those decisions you have to make, and
For
kind
sure.
of went with that.
Yeah. And I mean, it kind of led you closer
Mm-hmm.
into what you're doing right now, which is kind of what you like
Yeah.
ultimately wanted to do with the end goal and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious, did that brokerage end up being the client that you just signed recently for the marketing and everything, or was that just something completely separate?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
So yeah.
That's great. And then one thing I just wanted to hit on was kind of the timeline of like the high school graduation
Mm-hmm.
and then the mission work with college and then starting your own agency. Did
Mm-hmm.
you go from high school to college and then after you dropped out, then did the mission work and came back to do the marketing, or kind of what was the timeline and the thought process behind
So
that?
I graduated high school in 2018, and I crammed pretty much all of my high school credits except for one class into my first 3 years. So I only had one credit to graduate my senior year.
Mhm.
So what I did is I took my entire freshman year of college, my senior year of high school. So I graduated in 2018 from high school. In 2019, it was my sophomore year in college. And halfway through my sophomore year in December, I got kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to go to Ethiopia with a archaeologist and biblical missionary. And I mean, just kind of stuff that most people don't get to do. I've talked to you about some of that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
just to work on kind of once in a lifetime kind of stuff. And I just said, you know what? Um, I think that, once I'm done with this kind of period of mission work, that I'm confident enough to start my own business, which is really what I wanted to do anyway. Um, I was getting a degree or a certificate for automotive technology, but I mean, that's not really what I wanted to do. It's kind of what I started on, did a year of it, year and a half, and then realized, this would be a okay income, but it's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And kind of just made that realization pretty early. Decided just to, and I mean, I don't know if I told you this story or not, but the same day I met this dude is the same day I dropped out of college. I didn't know him beforehand. I met him, like talked to him for like 2 hours, went back, talked to my, I don't know, what do you call it, like a dean or like a advisor, whatever, told
Mhm.
them to withdraw my classes, and then went on from there. And then in 2019, I went on, the trip to Ethiopia. That was a really cool experience. And I think everyone should get out of the United States. Going to a developing country gives you a huge perspective of your finances that I think that most people don't have the appreciation for, or even the perspective. You can't really victimize or blame anyone if they don't have the perspective. But that was a really good experience to have as young as I am. And then that was that was February of 2019. No, 2020, I believe. No, that was 2019. Yeah, early 2019. And so, because yeah, late 2018 was sophomore of college. Getting my years mixed up here. 2020 just ruined my whole entire
Yeah,
perception of of
it's
when
not
Tom
even
was.
real
So
after this
everything before that was a blur.
point.
But
Exactly.
early 2019, went to Ethiopia in February. Got back. I'd saved up some money, dive 100% into marketing. And it's something, I've been growing Instagram pages since 2014. So like when it was really easy to grow, and I've grown multiple pages over 100,000 followers. I sold most of them that I owned actually to go to Ethiopia the first time. And so then I started my marketing agency. That was doing okay. You know, I knew it was going to be kind of a slow pickup.
Mhm.
And then as that kind of built up over that time, I just kept pushing forward. Then in early 2020, in January, I went to Ethiopia for a second time, did some more mission work, kind of took a break for marketing, and just saved up a lot of money. Pretty much my entire net worth. I just been saving and saving and saving to make one big push, just to kind of grow my marketing agency. And so in February, I got back, kind of primed everything, basically took my whole entire net worth. And in March, I poured my pretty much whole entire net worth into scaling this marketing agency. Things hit the ground running. Everything was going perfect. And then this little virus came out of China called coronavirus. And that pretty much halted everything I'd been planning for the last 2 years. And I mean, I'm not the only one. Obviously, the whole world faced that. And it's kind of one of those things where you got to deal with this in a way that's like, okay, I didn't do this to myself, but this happened to me. And, I've still got to take responsibility for everything that I've lost.
Mhm.
And so I got it back up and running just a little bit, but then, kind of that second scare happened. I lost that really big client, and now we're kind of caught up to the real estate area because I was also going to get my real estate license as a backup at the same time. Um, that hit, and now, 2021 January, I've shut down my LLC and I'm diving completely into content creation.
Love that. I love the, and it's sounds like such a long journey. Like that could be someone's whole like 20s and 30s all wrapped up in just
Yeah.
a couple of years with how much you've experienced. And I'm just kind of, when you were growing the Instagram pages and everything, kind of like for yourself, but not like associated with like
Mm-hmm.
brand and everything, were they kind of just like meme pages? Were they just niches that you kind of saw like, okay, I can catapult this growth with this strategy? Or how did you kind of get into that and just kind of figure out that hack of growing them?
Yeah, it started in high school on accident. My first page was a car page, and I grew that car page up. And the mistake I made, I didn't understand the value of having such like a large page, and I grew it to, I think it was like 43,000 followers, and I got bored and deleted it. And so I know, like looking back, that was like so stupid. If I would have kept growing that, I would have like been making pretty good money from like shout outs and stuff now. But that was like when I was 15, 16 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. But then I got better. I grew a dog page, a dog themed page, up to, it was just like random cute dogs. I mean, people follow that stuff. It was just for fun, just to see if I was any good at what I was doing. And I
Mhm.
grew that to like 103,000 followers in, I think, 1 year. So I grew like 100,000 followers from my sophomore to junior year. And then I did that again with another car page, which is one of the ones I sold. And then I also did it with like a, embarrassingly, like a men's fashion page, which was like, like kind of, it was so cringe in retrospect, like a Alpha M style, like men's advice and haircuts and that kind of stuff. It was, I'm glad I sold that one too. I won't even mention what page it was. But interestingly, the page that I sold that had 103,000 followers in a year is at like 4.3 million now to the person I sold it to.
That's insane.
And so if I would have kept growing that, it probably would have been around there too. And it's one of the largest dog pages on Instagram. And I think that it is owned by someone who works for Collab now.
Oh, that's crazy.
So
Would you be able to share just a range of like how much you sold it for at 103, like between 500 or whatever it is?
$700.
Really?
Which, I mean, if you look back at it now, if I was to sell that page again, I probably wouldn't take less than 3 grand for it.
For sure. Yeah, I've always been curious kind of just what that side of it looks like, because I know,
Mhm.
I mean, like influencers get however much per post, but I didn't know how much the actual pages were worth. That's crazy. That's up to
Yeah.
4.3 million.
And it didn't have like the greatest engagement rate, but it had a pretty okay, engagement rate. Um, but it was also kind of like a lot of work. And even though it was kind of a fast growing page, it didn't have like a primarily American audience either. There's a lot of little tiny different things. It's like your audience, is it just like, 98% of people from Thailand and India? Or is it like Americans and Australians and Canadians and people who have a lot of disposable income?
Hmm. And I think it's super cool how you took that kind of just like early passion, just like hobby sort of thing
Mhm.
of growing those pages into now. I mean, I saw your personal page went from just like a couple hundred followers.
Mhm.
Now you're up to like 5, 6,000. And
Yeah.
did you kind of use like, I mean, I know the platform's changed a lot and you used Reels a lot for the personal
Hmm.
page, but did you use kind of like any of the same strategies like that? Or was it just such completely different growth that none of that really applied?
So I've been using a strategy, and now something I criticize a lot of marketers on is like secrecy. There's so many marketers like, well, I have the secret to this and this and this and this. But it's like I have a strategy that I've been developing for like 4 years, and I don't keep it like secret, but it's at like the same time if everybody kind of started doing it, it kind of burned things up pretty quick. But I mean, you probably see a lot of people doing it. People call it different things. I call it hyper organic, where essentially what I do is I'm like just so intuitive at this point with like how the algorithm works and how people interact with things is that I can like spot and kind of nitpick like what's going to be viral content without even having to test it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And really, that's more or less a skill that I've built just over the last 4 years than anything else. But basically, it's just taking and repurposing viral content like what I did for theme pages and then just like do it for myself. I have a ton of friends in the outdoor content creation niche, a lot of really talented photographers and videographers, probably like 50 or 60 of them. And I just like basically shout out my friends
Mhm.
and I post their videos and I give them shout outs. And I know when to post them. I know how to post them. I know like the captions to use. I know the hashtags to use. And I do things in a lot different way that like, you go on your, like For You page on TikTok or you're just, Instagram Reels page. And, if you look at, the captions and stuff like that, you're going to start noticing patterns and just like how to use kind of like the psychological patterns in a certain piece of content to kind of almost force someone to interact with it
Mhm.
and kind of launch it into virality. And what most people don't really know is that there's a lot of randomness to it. And it's just a lot of consistency more than anything else.
Mhm. And I also like how you have your personal Instagram page. It's to me, it kind of just feels like a landing page. Like it's not cluttered with a bunch of stuff.
Hmm.
It's, I don't know how many posts, maybe like 15 posts of just high
Hmm.
quality pictures of you kind of doing what you're going to be doing with Odal.
Hmm.
Or is it Odal? How do you pronounce it?
Total.
Odal. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really just like how it's that landing page. The bio is just set up so it just explains what you're doing. And that's something that I've kind of noticed, kind of learning the social media game and the marketing and everything,
Mhm.
doing it myself, is a lot of people will just kind of post stuff out there, but not really have the strategy behind it. And I mean, I think the strategy and kind of what happens afterwards is almost more important than getting the attention in the first place. Like,
Hmm.
would you kind of agree with that, or what are your thoughts
Oh
on?
yeah, 100%. It's like, I am not like a really good content creator. So I kind of have to, it's like the 80-20 rule. It's
Mm,
like eventually, it's like you've seen, I showed you like the gimbal I have and all that kind of stuff set up. Eventually, I'll kind of get better with creating content. So then I can post more high quality content. Right
mm,
now, I'm posting low volume, high quality. It's actually really best to go high quality, high volume. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But I can't quite do that, yet. But I have, friends that do. And, then I'm kind of leveraging the other side, which is a strategy side, which is my 80% right now. And just leveraging my skills that I've used for other people for forever to, leverage other people's content and then leverage my own content in a much different way with that kind of strategy.
for sure. And so, what would you say was kind of your motivation to get into content creation, starting Odal, and everything like that? Like, have you experienced kind of like the 9 to 5 life before and you just hated it, or have you always kind of had that passion of just creating things no matter what it is, or kind of how did that play out?
It was really more of like kind of a mental breakdown than anything. That's kind of a weird way
I,
to put it,
I
but
feel that.
like
I
the
feel
mid-year, I was like so stressed and like so propped up on like my marketing agency. It's like I've built this beast to give me freedom, and it's like it enslaved me in the process.
Mhm.
And so it's like my original, what kind of woke me up in the morning was like kind of the thought of like going out and doing, you know, it's like doing what I love for a living. It's really kind of the simplicity of it. I love nomadism. I love just kind of like the freedom of being able to wake up in the morning and being like, okay, I'm going to do what I'm passionate about. It's still work. You're still jobifying your passion,
Mhm.
but it's what I'm going to do for, the rest of my life, and also inspire other people kind of along the way. So you've got, not only your impact, but your passion as well, kind of working together. And that's kind of what creates that drive behind you. And I kind of wanted to use my marketing agency as a financial stepping stone into that. It's like, okay, I want to make, you know at least $4,600 a month. Well, then at that, then after tax and all this kind of stuff, I'll be making plenty enough to still be comfortable while dive 100% into this nomadically.
Mhm.
And when that kind of fell under and I put all that pressure on myself, I just hit this point where like there were so many things, kind of like hitting me from different angles, like emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Like it just all kind of came crashing down at the same point. And I'm just like realized like, what am I doing? It's like this isn't what I meant to be doing. This isn't what I want to be doing. It's like I've made this I've made this trap for myself pretty much. And once I kind of had that like almost like a mental breakdown of like just kind of you know, the I guess structure that I've kind of propped up, this framework that I put a lot of weight on, it
Mhm.
just kind of broke and it all crashed down. And it's like, hey, I'm not doing what I'm passionate about anymore. I'm not doing what's impactful. I'm not changing anybody's lives with what I'm doing anymore. Um, it's taking away from other things that are more important, friends. I'm the director of marketing for a charity. I wasn't putting in as much time as I really could be with
Mhm.
that. And, kind of feel some guilt from that too. You know what I mean? Um, and so it really limited me. And when I kind of just had that break was when I was like, okay, we need to just clean slate. This is what I've always wanted to do. It's what I'm passionate about. It's, something I can share my passion through, not only what I'm passionate about, but something I can share too.
Mhm.
And also something that's going to impact people. I've seen how, influencers have impacted people's lives. I don't know if you've ever like you ever commented on someone famous's post and they like your comment, or like they comment back and like you're just like freaking out in your chair or whatever.
So it's funny you say that. Um, I wouldn't necessarily consider the guy famous or anything,
Mhm.
but George
You look up.
Pujols is a skateboarder on YouTube. He has like 200,000 subscribers or something like that. And I've been watching pretty much every single video he's put out for the past couple of years. And he tweeted something was that just yesterday? I think that was yesterday. Something about how he just opened like first investment account and was going to buy GameStop or whatever.
Hmm.
And that was on Twitter. And I replied, I was like, "Hey George, been following your videos for a while, love the content." And then I was like, if you want to do like a collab or podcast style video, I'd love to kind of just talk about getting started with investing and everything.
Hmm.
And he actually replied, and hopefully we have something in the works right now. But
That's
that was just
awesome.
like insane, and it's funny you brought that up right now. But
Hmm.
other than that, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't have that.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think like people, who like, for example, someone you look up to, just kind of the interaction. I think it just kind of reminds people that there's like just a lot more out there to be excited about. I mean, a lot of people, use Elon Musk as an example. A lot of people kind of look up to him and see what he's doing, kind of like his vision of the future and
Yeah,
kind of like the hope that he portrays. I think influencers do that very well on a scale that really impacts people.
yeah, and I think it kind of like almost not in a bad way, but like almost helps people form opinions in a way. Like
Hmm.
if you follow an influencer and you're like really about their life, like you don't just like
Hmm.
the photos once in a while and everything, but if you like really like their lifestyle and everything, and then they talk about maybe like a certain cause or something like that,
Hmm.
it just like connects so much more because it's like I really like this guy, I like everything he's about, and if he's passionate about this thing that he doesn't really
Hmm.
talk about, like maybe that's something I want to be interested in.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's kind of the direction you're going with charity water and
Hmm.
everything, but I think that could be really cool.
Charity what?
Charity, is that what it's called? Charity water?
It's Ripples is what it's called.
What the hell is charity water? Where did I come?
Yeah, I'm
I,
the director of marketing for anyway. Yeah, director of marketing for Ripples from the Well. I think there is a charity called Charity Water though.
maybe that's maybe I was confusing you with Gary Vee, like so
Maybe
similar.
I don't know. Probably I get that all the time. But
But
yeah, the impact that that can make, and that's a big thing too. So our charity, we take care of about 106 kids over in Jinja, Uganda, and I haven't been over there yet. Actually, the president, who's a good friend of mine, he's been over there and that kind of stuff, and like just like what we've been able to do in a year in the middle of a pandemic is just mind blowing.
mhm,
Raised like $60,000 in the middle of a pandemic to, we provided like mattress for these kids, food, clothing, education, shelter, and, provision and all these different needs and this kind of stuff. And, just made them feel loved in a lot of different ways. And just the ability, kind of to be able to serve through that too. And kind of thinking in the future, when I have 100, shoot, when I have 50,000, 100,000, a million subscribers, if I go over to Uganda and make like 5 videos, how much money could I raise, to impact those kids' lives, and
mhm.
kind of like looking out into the future there too.
Yeah, I love that. And I like how, kind of going back just a little bit, like how you were talking about building up the marketing and the agency and everything to kind of be able to fund
Hmm.
the next adventure and everything, which kind of just reminded me, I watched a podcast with Arac, the YouTuber, and it's something that I don't think a lot of people kind of think through if they're like taking a leap into entrepreneurship or
Hmm.
content creation or whatever it is, kind of having that financial stability to one, be able to let you put all your effort into what you're doing, and also just not having that scarcity mindset of
Hmm.
this next post, this has, like, I have to get a client off this one,
Yeah.
or this next post has to be the one that blows up, or I'm not going to be able to keep doing this. And it just kind of like limits your creativity and kind of forces things out that maybe you don't completely want to be posting, or just things
Hmm.
like that. And with him, he started like a wedding photography thing and a videography, and kind of built that business up to have the revenue to be able to start his YouTube
Hmm.
channel. And then, I mean, he obviously networked with a lot of very big influencers like Logan Paul and everything, but he went from 0 to a million subscribers within a
Hmm.
year. And I just don't think if he would have had that photography income or whatever it is for someone else's situation, just having that income to kind of stabilize yourself and let you really get into your passion and what you want. And I just think I think a lot more people could get into their passion,
Hmm.
whether creating content, starting your own business, whatever it is. If you just take the time to think through it and like logistically think about, okay, this is how much it's going to cost, this is how much I'm going to need for a year before the business or the content starts creating income. I think that's super important.
Hmm.
And I really like how you just kind of thought that whole process through. Um, just to kind of pivot a little bit, um, is there anything that you do um, to kind of like help relieve stress or anxiety or anything like that around creating content? Like anything, like for me personally, like I have to go on walks. Like that is the
Hmm.
only way I can clear my head and just kind of reset from the screen and everything. Do you have any hacks or tips or anything like that?
Yeah, that's actually something that was like a hard lesson for me. And I think this is going to resonate with like a lot of people. But it's like, now this is kind of and I know he's, changed his content style up, but I actually like unfollowed Gary V a while ago just because I could not stand like the hustle, 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 mindset, which I know he's like, oh, I don't mean that anymore. You know what I mean? But,
Mhm.
I was just like so kind of stuck in like this loop of just like always having to be doing something. It wasn't mentally healthy. And so I actually went to therapy for a while just to kind of relieve some of that and to kind of like work through some of that.
Mhm.
And once I kind of got to the point where I realized it's okay to work, 8 hours a day today, or it's okay to, take this day off, or, all this kind of stuff. And, there's a balance too. Obviously, if someone's working 100 hours and you're working 60 hours, they're going to be doing more than you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of reached a point where it's like, okay, but like what purpose, it's like, who's my competition now in like the creative space? It's like I really don't have any competition besides, I mean, myself. You know what I mean? Obviously, if I worked more, I'd grow faster up to kind of a certain point before I burn myself out. um, but it was kind of that point where I realized, okay, I can calm down a bit. And then I kind of, started learning some techniques to deal with stress. I just got over some health issues and I've been able to go back to the gym again and actually start gaining weight. I had some stomach issues for 2 years where I just could not gain any weight. And, that's something else too, having multiple things that you're kind of passionate about, something, that can, relieve stress at the same time. For example, working out for me, I not only do it just to relieve stress, but also, I have like an image, what I want to look like in 2024. It's
Mhm.
like I want to look like as someone who's called Z's, just kind of, I have a goal
Yeah.
that is something that keeps me motivated, so I know that when my motivation might dip for YouTube, which it will eventually, it's going to have ups and downs. And
Mhm.
there's going to be those dips where I just probably don't feel like making a video that day. Then it's something else I can go to that's still going to put some wind in my sails,
Yeah.
that's, separate, and that'll kind of take my mind off, relieve some stress. um Actually kind of working for the charity is stress relief too, doing something meaningful. And that's something I'd advise to anyone, just having something that you do that could, if you're having a bad day, to make an impact in someone else's life in a good way, it can really lift you up in kind of an interesting way. And then also I like to meditate too, just to shut the brain down. It's like I have such an overactive mind,
Mhm.
and a lot of creatives and entrepreneurs and people who are in industries like sales and marketing, they really struggle with that kind of like that over sensory. And people outside of those industries too, it's something a lot of people, especially Americans, struggle with, is just kind of having that overactive mind. So, meditation, working out, obviously, hunting and fishing and being outdoors, that's kind of my number one when
Yeah,
I'm, not recording it, you know what I mean? um, that's something that really relaxes me as well.
for sure. And I would like that because I've kind of discovered the same thing because when I first started like with the business and entrepreneurship and everything, I didn't really know um what to do to relieve stress or anything. And I
Hmm.
also kind of underestimated how stressful it was going to be, like
Yes.
creating content and putting your ideas out there for other people to see and potentially judge and everything. Like it
Hmm.
was really tough for me. And one of my kind of favorite things to just clear my head is skateboarding. Like it was something I picked
Hmm.
back up about a year and a half ago or something. And there's just something about it. Like whenever you're skating, like that has to be the only thing you focus on, or you're going to eat shit and hurt yourself really
Hmm.
bad. And so it kind of just like puts me in a completely different zone. Like I'm not even thinking about anything else whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like it just puts me in a completely different mind state. And I think kind of finding whether it's a hobby or just like a little activity like meditating or something to just put you in a different state is huge.
Hmm.
And also like what you were talking about with the passion of, that was also something that I personally had to discover. Like I started writing a lot within the past couple weeks. So it's something that I just started and I absolutely love it. Like, because it felt like in my mind I had so many things in my head to say, but not really a place to put them or anything. So I was like, I'm just going to start writing. Like, I know Medium is a good platform to put
Hmm.
writing. It's something that can potentially make money in the future. And it also kind of just opens up myself and the personal brand. Like it lets me tell my story more. And it also kind of acts as a stress relief because if something's on my mind, like I can literally just sit down and write for 3 hours at a time, and that time is gone. Like
Hmm.
it's kind of like flow state. Like same thing with skateboarding. Like it just puts me in a different mindset. So I think things like that are very important and something that I think people tend to overlook kind of in a way. Like I guess I don't know what other people think about, but I think a lot of people struggle with kind of stress relief and anxiety and everything
Hmm.
right now. And just really finding like what you enjoy doing, like your hobbies, your passions, is very rewarding, in my opinion. Um, then I guess to even pivot just a little bit harder into the money side of it, because of course I have to talk about money a little bit. Um, what did you kind of observe about money growing up? Like, was there a specific lesson you remember learning that you still apply today? Like, maybe your parents were super frugal and that's something that you're trying to break, or maybe they spent a lot of money, so you're just trying to save as much as possible. Like, was there anything kind of like that?
So I grew up in not the best part of Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I mean, I think like a lot of people have like kind of like a, oh, I grew up in, blah, 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 blah story. And now I'm here. Um, but I mean, I kind of had like a very mediocre version of, I guess, kind of like that kind of a story. My parents didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. They didn't make the best financial decisions in their youth, which is why they didn't have a whole lot of money growing up.
Mhm.
And then kind of growing up in kind of, I guess, a scarcity mindset and having to, break that too. Um, and then moving to Kansas, and my dad got a better job, and kind of they just worked their way up from where they were.
Mhm.
But also a decision I made. I think it's more like kind of a compounding thing, but it's really, I guess, probably kind of a rich dad, poor dad thing. I think pretty much anyone who is getting into I think everyone needs to read that book, first of all, just
Mhm.
for that kind of a perspective, whether it needs to be broken or not. Um, but I was not, raised in a financially wealthy, or educated position. And that's nothing against my parents, of course.
Yeah.
That's just kind of, how a lot of people grow up, really. And so when I read that, it kind of just, that was my probably start of my entrepreneurial journey right there. It's like, hey, there's a lot more to this. And then I kind of started getting into that a little bit more. And I had the opportunity to take personal finance when I was in high school.
Mhm.
And I decided, I don't want to take personal finance because, I mean, respectfully too, I really don't want to learn from a high school teacher about finance. I don't want it to be taught finance by a high school teacher. I want to be taught finance by someone who is wealthy. And so my uncle is a very smart person financially. He's very financially, um, well, he owns a financial planning agency, like what you do. And he's got, about 14 employees and does very well with it. And so I kind of reached out to him when I had, financial questions. Then I started to get kind of into a better friends group. And next thing I know, in kind of my close-ish circle, there was like 5 or 6 millionaires. And from kind of like a growing up perspective, it's like, oh, how could you ever be a millionaire, or that kind of stuff. It's like, it just seemed like an unreachable number. And it's like, not saying who it is, but I think probably the highest net worth of someone in my close personal circle is $130 million. And so seeing this happen, making money myself, and learning from people who are very wealthy, and not just very wealthy, but very financially literate. I mean, you can be wealthy without being financially illiterate, you know what I mean?
100%.
um, but at the same time, learning from people who are financially literate and wealthy as well, instead of, I guess, just learning conventional financial knowledge, which is why it's so important to have, like a financial planner, is because most people like me just don't grow up with financial literacy, and not just financial literacy, but like wealthy financial literacy.
Mhm.
And this is going to be a controversial thing to say, but money is, well, obviously very important. It's a tool, but we've grown up being taught money doesn't make you happy. and money can't get you, everything you want. And, money is the root of all evil. And this is kind of what most people are grown up taught, and we just kind of take it as fact. But the thing is that if you try and figure out like what your passion is and what stands in between your passion and you, I'd bet $10 that 90% of people would say it's money.
100%.
And so being financially literate enough to understand how important money is, but at the same time, developing um, the knowledge of not only how to gain money, but how to keep money. A big mistake that I made is I had a really good month financially with my marketing one time. I mean, it was a lot for, especially for, I was 19 at the time, and
Yeah.
I thought, holy cow, I'm gonna go buy a Bentley now. That's kind of like the feeling that I had, when I kind of looked at the end of that month. And if you were to go up to a 5-year-old and you give them $100, they're not going to be smart with it because they've never made $100 before. If you were to give me $100, I know exactly how to spend it. I've made $100 before. Most people have made $100 before. They know how to spend it and probably know how to spend it wisely. They
Mhm.
might blow it on something stupid. Who knows? I probably know half the stimulus checks didn't go to probably investments and needs, but
Yeah, just
that's just
keep
kind
me
of the
accountable.
way it is. But if you were to give me $1,000, okay, I could manage that too. I've made $1,000 before. If you were to give me $10,000, well, my management skills might not be as sharp as they could be. And that was kind of the situation I put on myself was, I was unprepared to handle an amount of money I hadn't made before.
Mhm.
And so I think, some people kind of fantasize about having a lot of wealth and having all this kind of stuff. Um, but there's kind of those two parts. It's the first part which I just talked about, which is financial literacy and getting up to that point, but also just important as kind of my latest, I guess, lesson. The literacy was my childhood lesson, and I'd say the management is my adult lesson.
Mhm.
And so learning how to manage that kind of money, because if you dumped $100,000 in my lap and expected me to know how to management, I wouldn't know how to manage it.
Yeah,
And that's really just the way it is. It's like until you've made it, you just don't know how to manage it.
exactly.
And so being able to learn how to manage money efficiently and also how to make your money work for you, um, that's really important.
For sure. And I want to get your opinion on this because it's actually something I just started thinking about within the past week or so. But I know there's always kind of been a big push to get financial literacy in grade schools, like high school, stuff like that and everything. But I had someone kind of bring up the idea of if if I was a sophomore in college or even in high school, college, whatever, and I was taking a literacy class and they were talking about mortgages and loans and all this stuff, like if I wasn't getting ready to be in that position, I don't think I would really listen to it.
Mhm.
Which I know there's more kind of like granular things that you can talk about within personal finance and financial literacy. But the idea was having a kind of doing whenever new hires are coming onto a company, kind of doing a financial literacy onboarding class sort of thing,
Mhm.
where those people are about to get a salary or commission, whatever it is, and maybe they're about to maybe buy a house within a couple of years. And that's when financial literacy would be taught to those people instead of starting at age 8 or in high school, whenever. I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts on when financial literacy should be taught, if it should be in schools or whatever.
This is kind of an interesting way to put it, but I think that it should be kind of self-taught. I think that we should be kind of taught not necessarily how to manage our own finances. I think we should obviously be taught the basics, like, how not to get yourself into a ton of debt and that kind of stuff, but not so much to the point where you're Dave Ramsey. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But we should be taught how not to be stupid with our money, you know, like how not to get into $100,000 of credit card debt when you're 20 years old. But at the same time, I think we should be taught more on how to research finances than we should how to manage finances, because you might have one person say something and one person say the other thing. And instead of just teaching from a single person's point of view, I think we should teach people from a young age on kind of just how to think for themselves on that kind of stuff. And that's kind of a weird way to say it, teach someone to think for themselves, which is,
Like,
kind of oxymoron. But I mean, that's really the simplest way to put it, is just to teach people how to find information, kind of sort through the BS with all of it.
mhm.
If I would have listened to Dave Ramsey on credit card advice, I would not have good credit score right now.
Exactly.
That was kind of like the thing. It's like I started listening to some Dave Ramsey stuff, and I'm going on like a light tangent here, but I started listening to like some Dave Ramsey stuff in high school, and he was talking about, cut up your credit cards, go cash only and all this kind of stuff. And I just did not have any of it. And so then I went on YouTube, and I just Googled how to build a credit score. I just looked that up I just say how to Google on YouTube, man, I'm a boomer. But I just looked up on YouTube how to, build a credit score. Then I started just reading articles. I'm like, oh, it would not be a good idea not to get a credit card. And
Exactly.
then I had someone that was really knowledgeable about credit, and they did a lot of research, and I trusted them. So I said, hey, what would you do to build a credit score? And so I'm 20 years old now. And like right before my 19th birthday, I got my first credit card. I just got a secured Discover credit card
Yeah.
and just started using it just below 10% the limit, and use it for gas. I didn't care about the cash back or anything like that. That's just kind of a added bonus, whatever, 2% off gas pretty much is the way I see it. But then, I started building my credit score from there. Then I got an installment loan for my car, and that, having two types of credit was good. And then I just got like the really nice, Freedom Flex card, which is kind of a fancy card. And now, I mean, I feel free to share this, but I have a 755 credit score at 20 years old, which
That's
is probably better than
ultimate.
half the country as a 20-year-old. And so, I know that when I want to go get a house, or whenever I want to get another, auto loan, I'm going to be in a really good position compared to most of my peers. And so if I would not have, jumping back again, if I would not have taken, you know, kind of my own, pulled myself up by my bootstraps to research that stuff myself,
Mhm.
um, the general financial advice is not to get a credit card, is not to, take out money. It's not to get into debt. That's just kind of, I guess, the general vibe, you get from general education and Dave Ramsey-esque teachings, especially people who come from um, less than a middle class background, of people who are probably in debt. They, have that fear of debt and don't know how to manage it. And that is passed on to their kids. And so if we just teach people to break away from school and their families, financial line, and, that kind of stuff, and just say, hey, here's how, you need to think for yourself on this, because some stuff is just not going to be accurate.
Mhm.
Um, Dave Ramsey is not the redeemer. There's a lot of advice out there that is good intention and might be good for some people. you know some people probably do need to cut up their credit cards,
Yeah.
but at the same time, people like me are, I mean, I bought a plane ticket, and I really only don't use my credit card that much at all. I've always used less than 10%. But
Mhm.
even just using it responsibly, I was able, just in those extra points, to buy a plane ticket to Washington, round trip, direct flight. I mean, I've never paid a cent in credit card interest.
Exactly. I
But
love.
it's like having the literacy that I taught myself, I was able to do that.
Yeah, and I like the point you make on figuring out how to research things yourself, because
Mm.
I think that's a very, very, very important skill, to be able to sift through things on the internet, because
Mm-hmm.
90% of things are just not good advice. But if you're able to find the things that do apply to your situation, or you're at least able to kind of tell, like, okay, this is kind of right, I'm going in the right direction, and now I know what I need to research a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more. I think that's an invaluable skill to have, especially in today's world. And I have to ask, did you, or do you have a position on GameStop or AMC right now? Just curious.
Dude, I absolutely love what's going on right now.
It's
The
amazing.
fact that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Donald Trump Jr., and Elon Musk are all on the same side wanting to sue Robinhood,
It's
over over this thing. It's like if you like fast forward and tell someone who lived in 2020 that was going to happen,
yeah,
I mean, they'd probably think it's weird because obviously 2020, but I just love what's going on. And it's kind of like pure capitalism at this point. It's really how, I think this isn't a political statement at all, but the left wing, especially the libertarian left likes to kind of go against authoritarian capitalism,
mhm,
and a bunch of small people using capitalism to basically overthrow in a way people who have gotten very rich off of it
yeah,
is like the pure definition of like what it is. It's like kind of taken down like the Vanderbilts of our generation really.
yeah.
And I think it's pretty cool. I love to see it. I love the memes in it. And I love the fact that like just a bunch of 16-year-olds led by Elon Musk off of Reddit are just absolutely wrecking an entire industry of people
It's
who are
insane.
exploiting it. Because like one of the hedge funds the hedge fund that owns, the hedge fund that is owned by the company that owns Robinhood, was going to short GameStop,
Mm,
and Robinhood stopping that is direct market manipulation,
100%.
and so I just love seeing a bunch of 16-year-olds just absolutely wreck that,
Yeah.
and seeing like both parties, extremely far right and extremely far left come together to basically like save capitalism and like stop this market manipulation. So
Exactly. Like this is what the world, this is what the country needed was
yeah,
everyone to come together on one thing. And
yeah, it's
I,
GameStop.
I have, it's been just fun to watch. Like I
It
haven't
is.
bought any of it. Like I didn't participate in it.
Mhm.
Um, but one thing I saw that was very interesting was like how Robinhood's associated with those hedge funds
Mhm.
and how that hedge fund reloaded their short positions right
Mhm.
before Robinhood halted the trading. Like there's going to be so many lawsuits and
Yeah.
there should be a lot of people in jail after what just happened. And the crazy, like what pisses me off is how Wall Street's been doing this the entire time, but as soon as retail investors do it,
Mhm.
it's getting like, oh no,
Yeah.
you guys can't win. Like you guys just broke the market.
Mhm.
Like, we've been doing forever, but you can't do that. Like you don't get.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Did you buy any of GameStop or AMC or anything like that?
No, I bought some Dogecoin, but
There you go.
kind
That's
of like
like 1 cent.
balance on the other side.
That's awesome. Well, I got a couple more questions. I know you kind of already hit on it a little bit, but what would you say is the biggest mistake you've made financially, and what you kind of learn from it?
Hmm. I think my biggest mistake financially, and now obviously retrospect, is 2020. But like if I could go back and do it again, I would just the reason I didn't get into what I was passionate about is because I didn't have the confidence to get into it.
Mhm.
It's like I thought, oh, I need all this equipment, I need all this stuff to get into what I'm really passionate about. And looking at painfully looking at how much money I lost in like the marketing agency, and the hours too. I think maybe not so much financially, but like the financial possibility that was lost. It's more or less like the money that I didn't make was the biggest financial mistake of just kind of like screwing around for 2 years trying to figure out a safe way to do what I wanted to do
Mhm.
instead of just diving right into it. Because if I would have started, um, of course, especially with everyone being quarantined, if I would have started in 2019, just like even if I sucked at it, just like vlogging fishing videos and outdoor videos and started an Instagram page, if I started the Instagram page in 2019, I'd probably be at like 100,000 followers by now,
Yeah.
you know? And so like my outdoor page has like 180 followers and it could probably be like 100,000 if I would have started when I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And so, there's that potential financial gain lost.
Yeah.
And then also all the money and time, especially that I lost during all the kind of the marketing period of my life. But at the same time, you got to look at things in a different life too. Like my marketing skills are extremely sharp right now. And I have a lot of confidence, compared to how I started. I'm confident that I can take a YouTube channel and then I'll grow it past, 1 million subscribers. Just because I have the intuition and the knowledge and a lot of experience behind doing that. But financially, if I just would have started when I wasn't ready, I think I'd be a lot further and a lot happier than I was through the whole period.
For sure. I like how the kind of like that opportunity cost is the mistake that, and I'm excited to look back on this podcast in 10 years when you have 1 million subscribers. I think this is the first podcast you've been on, so I'm glad I was here from the beginning.
Yeah.
But the last question I have before we wrap up is, how do you define success?
I think it is having the freedom just to do what you're happy to do and having financial security, or not necessarily just your wants, but like the security to do, what you want to do, to have the freedom of what you want to do. And, it's different for everybody, but, just to be able to wake up and know that I'm like going to go make fishing videos in the morning, or, that I'm going to go travel to Bali and Australia and like all these trips I have planned, instead of working as a mechanic like I was going to be from high school, you know what I mean? It's like I'm going to go to Australia and Bali in 2023, and I'm sure at that point I'm going to look back, probably being in Bali thinking like, man, I'm so glad I'm not, turning wrenches in a garage in Midwestern Kansas right now. So, just being able to do what you're passionate about, whether or not you're good at it at first, but what makes you happy most of all, and not only what makes you happy, but also kind of how you can serve other people too. Because I take that really seriously and kind of like from a faith-based perspective. And I know not everybody, kind of sees things from that perspective as well, but I just feel like I also have a duty to serve other people. For example, like through the charity work. And that too, being able to have the financial support to do that, to serve other people, and also to do what makes me happy and have the freedom to do pretty much whatever I want to do.
Awesome. I love that, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. Why don't you let the audience know where they can find you, or the best place to follow you and kind of your new adventure?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at Gabe Knechtel, GabeKnechtel, and my outdoor brand is Odal Outdoors. Pardon my hair. This is my logo. You'll see it. It's ODAL Outdoors on Instagram, and you'll find that there, or in the link of my personal bio at Gabe Knechtel. And basically, what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life is I'm going to be fishing. It's something I'm extremely passionate about, promoting conservation and protecting hunting and fishing, and also a lot of travel. A big regret, that I think I would have had though, kind of jumping back on our previous topic, is I've traveled over 60,000 miles in 2 years.
Damn.
And yeah. And so, even though, I guess like there's kind of like all these losses, looking back on it, I've done, I guess, like you said, lived my 20s out in my, last 2 years. But I love traveling. I love being able to like share travel with other people, and it inspires people too. You know what I mean? Just to live out your own passions inspires other people to do the same. And that's really what I want to do for the next rest of my life. So
sweet. I love that. Again, I appreciate it. This was a really good conversation. I think a lot of people are going to learn from it, connect with your story. Don't forget to subscribe if you guys enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, I wouldn't be mad if you left a 5-star review if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to it. But that's all I got for this one. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.